Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. Today, my guest is Mari Rosas, and she has this wonderful YouTube channel called Chica Power with Mari Rosas. So, without further ado, hello, Mari.
Hi, Phil. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's just we had to get our schedules coordinated, but we did, and here we are. So thank you so very much for doing this. I feel honored that you would come on the podcast and talk to me today.
Well, thank you so much for being so flexible, and I feel honored to be here as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I wanted to first have you talk about your background, your career, where you grew up. Um, I know you have a daughter, so you can just briefly talk about her if you wish, and what inspired you to start the YouTube channel.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about myself. So I guess the first thing I want to say is I'm Latina. I am half Puerto Rican, half Cuban, but I was born and raised in New York City in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan. And I lived there for the first 14 years of my life. My family moved over to New Jersey when I was 14, and I've actually lived in New Jersey for the rest of my life. I went to college at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology there. And then I pretty much started a career in higher education, specifically college admissions. And I've been doing that for about 28 years now. And it's been really fulfilling. I always worked primarily with underserved students. So students that are economically disadvantaged, first generation college students, underrepresented students, transfer students. I myself was a first generation underrepresented student, and that's kind of what attracted me to it, because being that my parents hadn't gone to college, they really couldn't help me with the whole college admissions process. I was lucky to have an older sister that had gone to college before me. She's 2 years older than I am. But I've always felt this need to kind of help other people that might be lost, if there's some way that I can help people with my experience. So after I successfully navigated through college, this really appealed to me. So I've been doing it. It's been very fulfilling all these years to work in college admissions. And yes, and I do have a 15-year-old daughter, beautiful 15-year-old daughter. And before I talk about kind of like what attracted me or what inspired me to create my YouTube channel, Chica Power with Mari Rosas, I want to give you a little bit of background, because the last 8 or so years of my life have been a period of great loss. So, even though I did all these wonderful things, I got married, I fell in love, got married, had a beautiful daughter, had a very fulfilling career. In the last 8 years had been kind of difficult. It started out with my divorce 8 years ago. And just 2 years after that, we lost my ex-husband and the father of my daughter to suicide, which was absolutely devastating. And, I went from being a single mom that I was at the time, but a single mom with, co-parenting with my ex-husband, to being an only parent, which I always make that distinction because it's very different being a single mom and being an only parent with a grieving 9-year-old daughter. And yeah, so that was difficult. But and then kind of unexpectedly, a year and a half later, I lost my mom, my mommy. We had just actually found out that my dad had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. My dad was considerably older than my mom, so we were sort of bracing ourselves for what might happen if he didn't respond to the treatments. And but instead, my mom ended up having a heart attack, and we lost her. And it was again, big blow. And then sadly after that, my dad had been responding pretty well to the treatments in the beginning, but after my mom passed away, he was only around for another year and 4 months, and then he passed as well. So in the period of just a few years, I lost a huge chunk of my tribe, the people that are, in your corner supporting you, and and just really know and love you. So it was just a difficult time. The only thing I can say is about 9 years ago, I did while I was married, I had unfortunately gained a lot of weight, and about 9 years ago I did lose 75 pounds. That's the only good loss in those years, and I have kept it off in a healthy way and everything. So so all of these experiences throughout all of this, I stayed positive. And you know what, part of it was like, I didn't even have to think about that. Here I am, I'm a mom, right? So I have to stay positive and be there for my daughter, and but just kept moving forward. And it was like at least a couple of years where I had been feeling like there was something else I needed to be doing here. I'm a mom, I have this fulfilling career, but there was something else, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But all the while, I was having this narrative going on in my head, sort of me kind of giving advice to other women, to anyone who was kind of feeling stuck in life, or or just maybe had gone through some of the experiences that I had gone through. And so at the beginning of this year, and I have to say, with the pandemic, right, being home, I was working from home for a year and a half, you definitely have a lot more time to kind of, really think about things and reflect on things. And I feel this pull. There's something I need to be doing, but I can't figure it out. So I finally reached out to a friend of mine that I've known for a long time, who had recently gone into she had become a life coach. So I said, I know and trust this woman. I'm going to set up a few sessions with her. And in these sessions, it just kind of crystallized the YouTube thing, a YouTube channel, so that I could kind of talk to people and just talk about my experiences. And maybe that resonates with some people and it kind of helps them out. So not knowing really anything about having a YouTube channel or creating a YouTube channel, I quickly signed up for a couple of courses on, how to grow a YouTube channel and, public speaking. And though I do a lot of public speaking for my job in college admissions, talking about your own kind of personal experiences and putting your own story out there is a whole different ballgame.
Right.
And it was, yes. It was actually terrifying, Phil. I was just like, I want to do this, but so there were so many times I would think to myself, who's going to want to listen to me? Like, no one's going to want to listen to me. And I was like, I shouldn't do this. And then the only thing that was more frightening than actually doing it was not doing it at all.
Right.
And then that's what kind of propelled me forward, because the thought of not doing anything, because I had found, what it was I was supposed to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I have to try this. And it's one of those things I always tell my daughter, the only way you know for sure that you're going to fail or that you're not going to achieve something is if you don't try it all, right? So I'm like, I have to take my own advice here, right? So yeah, so then I finally created this YouTube channel, and it's basically, the goal is to support, empower, and uplift women to become the best version of themselves. And so my tagline is fall in love with yourself first, and it's all about self-love is a central theme, but there's a lot of different topics that I cover in addition to that.
Right. I want to backtrack a tiny bit, because your career working with college students, and then you're now raising your own daughter, and you've been through these terrible life events and these changes. One thing that I know that you've probably noticed working with students all these years, and even seeing your child grow up from a young person, is that children are resilient. They can be very resilient. And I'm sure you've seen that in your daughter, what lessons do you think she's been able to learn from everything that she's seen in her young life, seeing you go through?
Right. I think the biggest one is just positivity and perseverance, really. That was very important to me when when her father passed away, and being that he did pass away from suicide, it was just really important for me that she had just ways to cope with the things that come through life. Here she is being dealt this, like, this big blow at the tender age of 9. And I really think that children that go through something like that so young, it makes them grow up a little faster. Sadly, it takes away a little bit of that innocence, because they're experiencing something that many people don't experience till they're
Yeah.
older in life. But I think that there's always hope, and that there's you just have to persevere, and just there's always positivity. One of the things that I did institute with her when her father first passed away, we started doing a positivity challenge. And what we did was, every night after we said our prayers together, we both had to say 3 things that we had enjoyed about the day. So very simple, right? But when you're in a shocked and experiencing shock and grief, it can be very difficult to find 3 things that you enjoyed about the day. So there were many days where it was difficult to find 3 things, and you had to get very, very granular with it. So it was things like, I love the way the house smelled while I was cooking. I love the sound of my daughter's laughter. I really enjoyed the way the cat was purring when I was petting the cat. Things like that. There's always something that you can enjoy. And then there are going to be those days where you're going to have a lot of great things, right? You enjoyed a lot of things about your day, and on those days, those were great days. They weren't as many of them, but we'd have to rank our top 3, because it was always 3. But the lesson was that we could always find 3 things that we had enjoyed about every day. And it did. Sometimes we had to think about it a little longer, but we could always find 3 things that we had enjoyed about each day. And then I felt like another benefit of it was that, because we knew that at the end of every day we were going to have to come up with these 3 things that we enjoyed, we were kind of, we had our kind of radar set for it. Okay. Oh, this was fun. This is going to be one of my 3 things. So you're actually kind of actively seeking those things. So you are almost like attracting them a little more, right?
And
So,
that's so important.
yes, right. It's just, it worked wonders. I have to say, like, for both of us, it was, I did it for her, but honestly, I had to do it too, right? So it was really beneficial. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was sort of like a little bit like, oh, she kind of felt like it was like something I was making her do. But then it became something that we looked forward to every night that we did together, right? And we did it for years. We don't do it every night anymore, but we still do it sporadically here and there. We'll say, let's say our 3 things, and I noticed her positivity really skyrocket, to the point where sometimes if I was having a bad day and kind of complaining a little bit, she would be like, Mom, it's like, she would comfort me. And I was
Oh,
like, oh, so it actually works. You think about it, right? Like a ninja, right? They do the same movements, right? Like every day, repetitive. It's like a repetition, right? And if you can train like that kind of, instinctual like movement by like repetition, I thought to myself, well, maybe you can train positivity too, and it actually works. So, so yeah,
it does work. It really does. And like I said, your smile and your positive attitude just illuminates the screen, and that must make such a huge difference to other people in your life as well, especially the students that you live with and your immediate family, I would think, and your friends.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, I guess I've been told that I'm bubbly and, positive, and, I do like to laugh a lot. So yeah.
And I think that just some of the episodes that I was watching that you did. Um, there was one episode you're talking about self-worth
Yes.
and leading by example, and that's what
Mhm,
you've been doing.
mhm.
And treat one thing that really stood out, and I made a list of things that you had here. One, you said treat yourself how you would treat others you admire and respect. And
Yes.
that's huge because if you're
Mhm.
down on yourself all the time, would
Mhm.
you accept that from someone else? No. So if
Right.
you treat yourself that
Mhm,
way, then
mhm, mhm.
positivity will be there.
Right, right. It's true. I feel like, yeah, a lot of times people can be self-deprecating, right? And I know that for me, I went through some periods of low self-esteem, and so and periods of thinking that things like self-care was selfish, like I was being selfish and everything. And I find that a lot of it is just changing my perspective about it, because if I would never treat someone else that I admired, right? That way, just like you said. And so I have to turn it around on myself. Like treat myself the way I treated other people that like I really cared about. And it's like, because yeah, I should care about myself, right? So I kind of like I do that a lot, I think, in my videos, like because I had to change my way of thinking that way. So that's why I kind of turn it around that way. And I do think that sometimes like that whole thing about self-care being selfish was a prime example. And it's you take care of all the people that you love. Well, you should love yourself, so you should take care of yourself, so
Right.
it's all of that. Hmm.
And also, it's really amazing. You have this wonderful personality, yet you had to endure, and this was part of the thing too. You had to endure these relationships that were just
Hmm.
devastating. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and one thing that stood out from what you said too is the second one on the list: don't let others undervalue you. Don't let them do that to you. Don't allow others to disrespect you or treat you poorly. Absolutely. That's awesome, solid advice. And you've had to endure that yourself. Talk a little bit about how you were able to overcome that, because that's not easy, is it?
It's not, and you can fall into this pattern of just allowing people to kind of step all over you. And that's one of the things. I've always been like a really like nice person with like kind of like a sweet disposition. And one of my girlfriends always tells me I need to be like less like that, and a little bit more of a mean girl, I guess. But it's just not in my nature. But I have learned throughout the years to kind of like set those boundaries. And it's people the thing that I've learned is that people will treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. And if you don't allow them to treat you that way, and sometimes it means that you have to walk away, because some people will just treat you a certain way and they won't change. Some people you say, okay, no, I don't accept that, and they'll be like, okay, so I won't do that anymore. But some people, won't, and you have to be ready to exercise kind of like, your right to walk away from something if you're not being treated the right way. And that's something that I had issues with. I had issues because I just felt like, oh, it's I'm just being nice. But in this being nice thing, I was allowing people to not treat me the way I deserve to be treated, and that's no longer the case. So, and I think I'm still nice.
Well, yeah, you
So,
are. And I'll tell you one thing, I grew up in that environment. My dad, I don't talk a lot about this, but my dad was a womanizer. He was an alcoholic. Um, my mom put up with him for a lot of years, and then eventually she got to the point where his violence became, I mean, he had been violent off and on throughout the time that we were there. Um, but she finally got to the point where she had had enough,
mhm,
and she grabbed, my oldest sister had been gone for a few years already, but she grabbed the 3 remaining children that were there with her, and she yanked us out of there, and she brought us to California. And my dad eventually, my dad came out here thinking he was going to get my mom and the rest of us to come back, but she was having none of that. And so it's important for women, especially if they've been in an abusive relationship, to have that strength. And she was lucky enough to befriend an older real estate woman that he worked with, because he was in real estate too. That was some of the one of the many things that he did. But she befriended this older lady, and she was the one that helped us get away from him. And so she had some kind of support to help her get through that. But at the same time too, she realized, hey, this is not healthy for me, it's not healthy for my kids, and she got out of it. So I think it's awesome that you're telling women that, hey, you deserve better for yourself, because they do. And men can learn from that too. If you're on the flip side, and I've been in some not so pleasant relationships where I've been on the wrong end of it, people will treat you, like you said, people will treat you in the way that you will let them get away with treating you. You've got to have the knowledge and the fortitude to say, you know what, I'm better than this, I deserve better. And that's what you're teaching a lot of women, and that's amazing and awesome.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that story, Phil, because I mean, I'm sure that was a difficult time for your mom and yourself, but there comes a time when you realize that, I think a lot of women get stuck in relationships like that, and particularly if it's in a marriage where they're afraid to break up, to break up the home, and they think, I'll endure this so that, because they feel like it might be the best thing for the kids. But in reality, for the children to be seeing like a marriage that's dysfunctional or an abusive marriage is not a healthy thing, because then they're going to grow up thinking that that's what a marriage is supposed to be like, or that's how a wife is supposed to treat a husband, or a husband is supposed to treat a wife, and that isn't the case. And I think at some point, if they do make that realization that it's actually, you're not really doing your kids a favor by keeping the family together if it's not working that way, then and it is difficult to make that decision and then to actually act on it, especially if you don't have a whole lot of support. So I give your mom a lot of props for that. And the thing is, and the other thing is, it doesn't even have to be like physically abusive. It could be verbally abusive, or emotionally abusive,
right.
Kind of relationship too. And that's, I think, a little bit more difficult for people to realize that's happening, but yeah, it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, and from the emotional side can come infidelity. And that's one of the worst ones too, because you're not doing anything wrong. I mean, it's the other person and their behavior, and then you've got to reconcile that hey, it's not my fault.
Right.
And so one other thing that you said that really struck a chord with me was the third one on the list: believe and trust in yourself. You have to do that. And I think that's where a lot of your positivity comes along. And I've always tried to be a positive person, and I've worked with kids for a lot of years, and I think that's what I want my legacy to be, that they can think of me 10, 20, 30 years down the line and say, wow, Mr. Scott was a positive person, he was a great guy. And I always like it when kids tell me that they're happy to see me. That's what you want. You want people to be happy to see you and to be glad to see you, because you're doing something right.
Correct.
And you care. And so getting that in a relationship and demanding that from a relationship is very important, and you highlight so many of those things in your YouTube shows.
Mm-hmm. So, and one of the things that I just believe is very important, I think that if you first focus on the relationship with yourself, and that's why my tagline is fall in love with yourself first, right? Because this is what I always say this. I always say, the only person that you are guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with is you. Yes. So you should be someone that you want to spend a lot of time with, right? So you should love yourself. You should, you should be out there doing those things. You shouldn't be putting, waiting for a relationship or waiting, to do the things that you want to do in life, right? You should be doing all those things that you want to fulfill yourself. But that goes in hand with what you said about, like, believing in yourself, because you that true authentic lasting happiness comes from within you. You can't put it in someone else's hands, because even with the best intentions, even if you find your soulmate or whatever, you never know what's going to happen, what life has in store. That person may be, tragically taken away from you or whatever. You can't control that, but you can control you and what you do with your life, and what making yourself happy. And I believe that, and like I said before, and I've said this before too, that if you are truly happy and your cup is overflowing with your own love, you have that love to give to all the other people. Everyone else, all the people that you love and love you are going to benefit from that as well. So it's not really like a selfish thing either. Right. So I just think that so much comes from that. And if you're in love with yourself, then you will trust in yourself, and yeah.
I think too, and that's huge. It does start with yourself. Only when you've reconciled with yourself that, hey, I am worth it. I am a good person. I deserve to be treated the best, and I deserve to make sure that I'm healthy and I'm well, body, mind, and soul. Then, like you said, you can give that to other people. But you're right. You have to have that first. And you mentioned something too on one of your programs. It's that you have to also make sure that you're taking care of yourself, but that you're good with yourself. You have to be good with you.
Correct.
Because if you're not, then you're not going to be good for other people. And getting toxic people out of your life also was, I thought, another huge one. Because if you're around toxic people that are negative and nasty, I mean, that's just going to drag you down.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes you have to make that tough decision and just cut them out of your life. I mean, it's, because it's almost like you said, they can drag you down, or it's almost like, they can infect your life with their negativity. And you just have to, you can try, go to therapy, or, whatever it may be, if it's a relationship or, a marriage or whatever, and go. But if it doesn't work, you may have to make that tough decision where you cut them out of your life, and it may be, maybe the best thing that you do. And one of the other things that you mentioned too about before you can love yourself, like being okay with yourself, I believe that, speaking in academic terms, right, that self-acceptance is a prerequisite to self-love, because a lot of us have issues with guilt, or feeling like we're not worthy of love, even our own love. Even our own love, we're not worthy of it because whatever, we did this, or whatever, our self-esteem, like it could be something where just you had a toxic person in your life that wore your self-esteem so down, so low, that you just can't, it's hard for you to get out of it, and you have to do that self-acceptance. So a lot of it, I think, is forgiveness. And so not only do you have to forgive others in your heart, you don't have to tell them, I always say, you don't have to tell them you forgive them. You have to forgive them in your heart so you can let that you have to lift that negativity out of your life and get it out. And if you're carrying that weight of like really, despising someone for causing you pain or whatever it is, that you can't break free of it. So you have to forgive them and you have to forgive yourself. And that in some respects can be even harder than forgiving other people. I know for myself, I'm a lot harder on myself than I am on other people. And, because I feel like I should have known better or whatever. But, we have to remember that we are all human and we all do make mistakes. But I think what's important is that we take responsibility for our actions, and we do admit when we have caused someone else pain, and then that we're open to learning the lesson, because I feel that there's always a lesson to be learned. And we have to be open. If we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, we're not growing. You have to, okay, this was a lesson here. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do it this way, and going forward. And so that you can almost take almost any negative and sort of say, that you can take, maybe that it's not necessarily 100% positive, but you can take something positive out of it if it's some kind of teaching or like learning or lesson that will help you in the future, or what might help someone else in the future. Maybe it won't help you, but maybe it'll be something like, look, I did this. You have all those inmates that talk to the students that are like, having, that they're going astray, and they tell them, look, you can turn it around now. You don't want to get to the point where what we had to go through. And so someone else can benefit from the mistakes that you made. So there's always something that you can kind of take out of it.
Now, you've got some very important series that you cover on your YouTube channel. The Breakup Survival Guide series is a great one. I love that. And one of the things, and some of this that you just mentioned is in that.
Yes.
And you mentioned also removing those dark feelings from your heart.
Yes.
That's huge.
Absolutely. Yes, that was huge for me, because I'm all about like happiness and joy and like the happy feelings and everything. So, I went through a painful breakup about 2 years ago, and again, and I think maybe it was because I had been beat down by all these things that had happened in a succession. So I wasn't able to like just bounce back from it. I wasn't, and then, and plus the breakup was bad because I felt betrayed and used. So, and the fact that that it took me so long to go through the pain, and then I still had these dark, hard feelings in my heart. In my heart, I've always prided myself, like I have this big, open, squishy, generous heart, and it didn't feel that way anymore. And it really scared me, because I thought to myself, is this going to be what my heart's going to be like going forward? I'm going to be bitter, and I'm going to have this, like, it really, like I could feel it, like this hardness. And I was like, no, I told myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring it back to the way it was before. And sadly, I didn't know how long it was going to take. It took a long time, but I'm glad. And I actually actively put the work into making sure that I brought it back to the way it was. And one of the things, and I mentioned in my video, I love this meditation where it actually gives you this visualization, and you actually are asked to recall, the times that hurt has been inflicted, like heartbreak or hurt. You could go back to, your inner child, your childhood, hurts. But, in this case, I was, it was all about that breakup, because I had to get those feelings out. And you're actually told to like do this scooping motion where you're scooping these feelings out of your heart. So I was doing this scooping motion, and you put them into this imaginary bag, and you just keep scooping them out and putting them in the imaginary bag. And at the end of the meditation, you like imagine this white light coming down on the bag, and it kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like sanitizes it, and it kind of dissolves, and it's just like, they're gone. And so, you kind of, some people think that's ridiculous. How could that help me? But, again, it's a repetitious thing. I did this meditation every single day. And sometimes I did it twice a day until I felt I didn't need it anymore. And and that was it. And I did it. I'm a busy person. It's 34 minutes. Here I am I have an hour-long commute each way to work, and I'm busy, but you're supposed to do it with your eyes closed. I said to myself, I'm going to do it while I'm driving to work. Obviously, I didn't close my eyes.
Yes.
But I did it while I was trying to work. And I still, I'm driving. I'm thinking. My eyes are on the road. But I cried like almost every single time I did it, because you're recalling, like it's painful, but it was actually like a good kind of cry. It was like a release kind of cry, and so it felt good to do it. And then doing that scooping thing, and then at first I was like, oh, I'm not, but I kept doing it because it felt good. And like I said, at one point, like it was, I probably did it for a few months, like every day for a few months. And then one day I just didn't, I was going to do it. And I was like, I don't feel like I need to do it, and then I stopped doing it. And it was just, so that really, really, really helped. And I really urge people to try it. Even if you don't believe in that kind of thing, you think it's hokey or whatever, it just, I don't know. To me, I found it to be extremely helpful. And then all of the other tips that I have in that survival guide of again, forgiveness and all of that really helps to lift those weights, to lift that negativity that you're feeling, and just get it out of you. And honestly, I feel like I'm better than I was before.
That's awesome. And that was the guided meditation for healing a broken heart, correct?
Right, by David Kessler. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
And that just seems like that was just so awesome to help you recenter yourself and to get yourself back to where, not only back to where you were, but like you were just saying, even better than you were before. And that must really make you feel awesome. And I think it even makes your advice to women even more meaningful too, because it always, to me, it's more meaningful to get advice from someone who's been through these situations. And you've been through some terrible ones, but you've been able to come out of it on the other side positive, happy, smiling, joyous, loving yourself, and appreciating what you have. And then whenever you do decide to get into a relationship, you're going to have all of those positive feelings with you, also backed with the knowledge that, hey, I'm worthwhile and I deserve better. And you're not going to let those things that happened to you before happen again.
That is correct. That is correct. I feel that way. That's one of the things that I always say about the self-love thing, because once you fall in love with yourself and you have this, you're living your best life. That's how I feel, right? I'm living my best life. So I have a good thing. So, if I allow someone into my life, it's because, I think that they're going to, add to it and make it better. So they're really going to have to be somebody that I feel is, really going to enhance my life because I have a good thing going. So if, it's like, actually, like, it makes your standards go higher because you realize that, I don't want to mess up what I have here. I'm not going to just let some random person that's not making me happy and isn't treating me the way I deserve to be treated, because now I know how I deserve to be treated because I treat myself that way. And and then it automatically raises your standards, like without even, like, unconsciously, so
I'll tell you one thing that, and this is so true, but you talk about the importance of music and having a playlist, and that it's a positive playlist. Like, ever since I can remember being a little tiny kid growing up in Missouri, I'd sit for hours on end by myself in my sister's bedroom because I was the youngest and they would be gone to school. But I'd listen to records, kind of dating myself, but but I'd listen to records for hours on end, and some of the lyrics I understood and some I didn't, but it was just the sound. And I found myself listening to a lot of happy songs, and that's very, very important. And you talk about your playlist.
Oh, well, I have a playlist for everything. So I have a workout playlist. I have, like kind of like raised vibrations, kind of like, there are all these like tonal musics that just like, I don't know, make you feel good. I have a relaxation if I'm kind of stressed out, kind of like Zen, like meditation music. I have yeah, I have a breakup playlist that's really cathartic. So it has like it has those songs when you want to kind of wallow. It has the kind of angry songs. It has the I'm over you. I'm inspirational. So it has like a mix of that. I did share that on my YouTube channel. I did create a playlist for self-love, to music to like enhance or promote self-love. So I have that on my YouTube channel as well. But I have like Latin pop playlists. I have like the vintage Latino playlist. I have so many so many different types of. There's a romantic playlist. There's a like a girl power, like feeling strong kind of. I have so many playlists. I just, music is such a huge part of my life, and I feel like it can really motivate you, because I strongly believe in affirmations and mantras. That's something that I talk about a lot in my videos, and a lot of people think, oh, what can that do? But again, it's that whole repetition. You repeat something and you internalize it. And I feel that music, lyrics, if you're singing the lyrics and you're repeating them and everything, you can internalize that too. And it's just like the music itself, though, the sound of it can be so motivating. So I find, I mean, honestly, I feel that I've never had music therapy myself, but I can see why it's so powerful,
Yes.
because like it's just such a, not only is it a mood lifter and everything like that, but it also, it takes you back. You listen to a song, and you were just talking about, listening to the records in your sister's bedroom. I remember I listened to records too when I was little, and I remember it brings me back. I hear like ABBA, Dancing Queen, any of those songs, a lot of the ABBA, anything that's on that album, and it brings me back to when I was a little girl. My sister's best friend, she had all the ABBA like records, and we used to spend hours like just dancing and twirling around in her living room, and it brings me back to that moment. It can bring you back to like specific moments in your life. So music is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I still have songs even to this day that I would hear just growing up when I was little, or when I was in junior high or high school or college, or even as an adult, songs that still resonate with me years later. And now one of my favorite people to listen to is Keith Urban. He's such, I mean, if you listen to his lyrics, well, one, he's an amazing guitar player. But if you listen to his lyrics, the lyrics of his songs, and just the way he pours his heart out into his songs, I mean, that to me, that's pretty freaking awesome. I love that. I love that. And I can relate to that. And I'll be driving to work and I'll be playing some Keith Urban and stuff like, yeah, this is it. And then I'll play older stuff too. And it just, but like you said, music, it's kind of like they say, it's like the soundtrack of people's lives. And it can have such an important meaning to you and to your mood. I mean, if you're down, sometimes you'll play stuff that's kind of sad, but then ultimately I want to be back in my happy place where I'm playing music that makes me happy.
Correct.
And that's what I've been doing the last couple of years. I've been playing stuff that makes me feel happy. I love Christmas time, and I love Christmas music too. That makes me happy. And then now that summer's almost over, I'm looking forward to the holiday season. And I'll tell you, I have not mentioned this before to anyone, but I will listen. This is the dead of summer. I will play my flash drive in my car. I will just bust into the Christmas music folder and start listening to Christmas music, because it's so uplifting and it makes me feel so good. I mean, I love that. I love that time of year. I love summer, but I love the holidays too. And music is so important. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and you talk about that in your videos. And it can be healing too.
Absolutely, it can be. It's just amazing. I think music can be so powerful. And it's funny you mentioned about the Christmas music because I love it too. And then I just love to listen to the music. And then like when New Year's rolls around, they stop playing it. And I
Yeah,
mean
and then I feel
we can
kind of
still
like,
play. Yeah,
boo.
right. It's like so I can still play it at home. I can
Yeah.
play Alexa, play some Christmas music. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Christmas music. But it's just like, oh, Alexa, stop.
That's so
Oh,
funny.
so yeah, it's just amazing. I love that. And that brings me back to when I was a kid, because you listen to the same Christmas music all the time. And I don't know, it's just so incredibly powerful. I agree. And it's funny you were talking about Keith Urban. While you're talking about Keith Urban, I'm thinking my Keith Urban is Mark Anthony.
Yeah.
I love he's got so many good songs, and I just love his lyrics. It's just like they're so poetic and like beautiful, and I just like I'm in awe of them. And there's just so many songs they're like he has like really romantic songs. He has those kind of like bitter songs, breakup songs too, and just happy, let's like happy about being alive kind of songs. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, my one of my favorite Keith Urban songs is God Whispered Your Name. It's like, man, if whenever I get into a relationship again, that's what I want to feel. I want to feel that.
Right.
It's just certain
Mhm.
songs just are extra special.
Mhm.
But just it's huge that you said stay positive, focus on yourself,
Mhm.
and give yourself closure in a relationship, because that's huge too, because those negative, nasty feelings can linger.
Mhm.
But as long as you're trying to be positive and you're working on yourself and you giving yourself that closure to especially a bad relationship is huge, and that's very important.
Mhm.
Talk about that a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, because sometimes in relationships, so many times, you there were words that you wanted to hear or things that you didn't get to say, or and you think of them later. I'm talking about like after the breakup is over. You said what you had to say during the breakup, but then afterwards it's just like this residual stuff. And you know it could be that anger, and you need to kind of get it out. And so my advice to women is not to spew it out on your ex. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a big believer that silence is one of the best things that you make a big
Yes.
statement with silence, right?
I agree with that
Right.
wholeheartedly.
Yes. Okay. I love that. So yeah, and it's just, and then but you need to have that release, because it's true. Like sometimes, you have all these emotions, and if you like really kind of let them loose on the person, they're just gonna kind of say, oh wow, she's crazy. She went crazy. And it's just like, no, you know what? And then that person's gonna be, whether it's a man or a woman, obviously, I always kind of do it from the viewpoint of the woman, but it's then that person's reacting to you. But if there's silence, there's no reaction, there's no reacting, but you still have these emotions you want to get out. So my thing is, write a letter, write an email, get it all out that way. Or whatever, do a recording, and spew it all out as nasty as you want. Get it all out there. Just get it all out, but don't actually send it to that person. I mean, if you really need to send it to yourself, or send it to your best friend. Say, I'm going to send you because I have to send it. I have to hit the send button on the email. But don't send it to that person. And then the other thing is, I feel like if the person has done you wrong, I'm assuming that if you have like these hurt, bitter feelings, the person probably did something, and they don't really deserve to see your pain. They
Right.
don't. I just feel like that's almost like a gift to them. Oh, I really hurt her, or whatever, or him, or whatever. It's just one of the big things that I always say, that my dating advice is not, it's not, don't come to for me for dating advice to get the guy or get your ex back. That's not what my dating advice is about. It's all about being true to yourself and keeping your dignity intact. That's
Right.
what it's about. And And basically, yeah, so give yourself the closure. And then you can take it a step further. After you write that letter and you spew out everything you have to say and everything, if you really want to take it a step further, you can draft a response letter from that person and write all those things that you wish you could hear from that person. I mean, if there was an apology that you were waiting for, put it in there. You know, if there's whatever it is your ego wants to hear, because I say you may not want this person in your life anymore. Most likely you don't, like I said, I give an example of the breakup that I used from 2 years ago. I was the one that ended it. I ended it, but I didn't want him in my life anymore because I felt betrayed and used. But it would have been nice to hear these things. It would have been nice to hear that apology. It would have been nice to hear. So, hey, write yourself the letter and put all of the things that you wish that person would say to you in the letter, and open it up and read it as many times as you want, and just give that closure to yourself. And at the end of the day, there's a release for all of those kind of pent up emotions that you have. But at the same time, your dignity is staying completely intact, because you're not like going out there like, and now you have this reputation of being the crazy ex-girlfriend.
Or vice versa. I think that can go both ways too.
Correct.
Now, I think some people are lucky enough. Like, I have a friend, my best friend from high school, as a matter of fact. He lives in Maine now, and he's been married for a very long time, has 2 wonderful kids. And I'm like, man, he was lucky enough to get that marriage right the first time. Not all of us are that lucky. Like, I came close to being married once, and by the grace of God, I didn't go through with it. And turns out she'd been cheating on me.
Sorry.
So
you dodged the bullet.
Yeah, and that's the way I feel now. At the time, it was like, oh, you kind of have these feelings like, oh, well, I don't want to be alone and stuff. And then you start doubting yourself. But as time passes, you get stronger. And like you said, you have to stay positive and believe in yourself and trust yourself. That's huge. You have to have those feelings and that attitude. Positivity breeds positivity, if that's what you want. It's what you allow into your life that makes a difference.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to put up with it and like I said, and once you start treating yourself the way you should treat yourself too, you just like, I don't need somebody. Do I want someone? Yes, but it has to be the right person. And you're not gonna disturb that peace that you found and that balance that you found in your life for someone who's not gonna respect that or respect you or whatever, so.
And that was that was key, what you said, peace and balance. If someone is going to disrupt that in your life, then they're not worth being around. That's toxic too. That's very toxic.
Correct.
So I wanted to ask you too, let me look at this, because I've made all these notes to myself. Oh, these tips that you had. Okay, so one that I wrote down: go for a walk outside. So these are, I guess these were like healing tips or something. Go for a walk outside. Get active indoors, so exercise and dance. Listen to uplifting music. We talked about that. Aromatherapy. Talk a little bit about that one.
Oh my goodness. So we were just talking about music and how music can bring you back to certain times in life. Well, I believe that smell can do the same thing, the aromas, right? It can bring you back to, you smell a scent like that someone wore. I mean, I have a bottle of my mom's perfume, and it smells like her, and I have this this one of the things I mentioned in my video, but I have a coconut candle that smells like, I bought it because I smelled it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this smells like the coconut ices. There was like this little man that used to sell coconut ices outside of my school that in Washington Heights, Incarnation school, that and I used to I used to get them when I was little, and it brought me back. Like, I actually remembered things like that I hadn't thought about, how he had this big metal spoon, and like after he scooped it, he used to like shape the ice with this big, huge metal spoon. He didn't have like a regular like ice cream scoop thing that was round. He used to like shape it with this big metal spoon, and it was I don't know, like I hadn't thought of that, but the smell just brought me there. I was like standing in front of him waiting to get my coconut icy, and I just think that so smells can be some of them can be very uplifting and soothing. Like lavender is very soothing. Anything like citrus is usually uplifting, and that it really works. So I love scented candles. I have lots of different scented candles, so I use that. But then some people use the essential oils, and there's a lot of different things that that diffusers, a lot of different ways that you can bring these smells, these wonderful healing smells into your life. But yeah, I think that the video that you're talking about is about happiness, I think, and yeah, ways to make it, like if you're down, like how can you make yourself happy, like boost your mood immediately, and these are the ways. Yeah.
Now also and we talked a little bit about this, the guided meditation practice. And
Yes.
you tell your viewers that you can find them easily on YouTube, and you're right, there's a lot of them out there.
There's tons of them, and there's so many different types. Like I find I tend to use them the most when I get stressed out. Obviously we already talked about the heart healing meditation. That was a different one, but a lot of times if I'm really under a lot of pressure and stress, especially when my daughter was younger and I didn't have the luxury of just being able to like leave the house and go to a yoga class or something, because I couldn't leave her by herself, or, and I just needed, so it was just, I would do like a 10-minute meditation in the morning, or, you could pretty much do them anywhere. You could even do them in the office, like short ones, but they have longer ones that are like, I prefer the ones that are like about in the 20-minute range. But a 10-minute meditation can help too, and they're just really soothing, and it's like you feel you're kind of going within, but like I don't know, like these guided meditations, it actually feels like when you're done with them, like you went somewhere and you came back, and it's just like it's like a little mental vacation, and a lot of it has to do with the breath work. Most of them start out with like you have to start breathing in a certain rhythm, and you're focusing on that, and that allows you to clear your mind but be in the moment at the same time. You're focusing on your breath, which is something that's like a biological thing that's happening, but focusing on that kind of clears your mind. And it's so I find it to be really, really, really helpful when you're stressed, or even if you're just like, like really upset too. It just breaks that pattern, particularly for people that have like issues where you get like kind of obsessive about something. You can't stop thinking about it, and it's like, oh, and it just keeps repeating. That's really a good way to kind of interrupt that pattern, and clear your mind and give yourself a little break from that.
Now, speaking of giving yourself a break, your next one on that was having a girls' night out or a girls' night in.
Yes. Yeah, I totally believe in the power of just being around friends. I mean, whether, obviously, any friends, the friends that like make you laugh. I just actually this weekend, my daughter was sleeping over her aunt's house, and I went out with my longtime girlfriends that we've been friends since kindergarten, Marie, and we just laughed so much. And to me, laughter is like one of the best forms of therapy for anything.
Yes.
If I'm laughing, like when you laugh that you can't breathe, like that is just the best thing in the world to me. Like there's almost nothing that can compare to that. It's just great. And she and I did a lot of that this weekend.
That's awesome.
It's just like, yeah, and it's just so replenishing, and honestly, I really think it keeps you young too. It's just like that silly laughter, it's a great thing.
And on that same link there, plan something fun, and you did that too.
Yes. So planning, that's another thing. I feel like if you have plans, even if they're not right now, maybe like it's a few months, it's like you have something to look forward to. So if you're feeling kind of down, plan something, and it gives you something to look forward to. Like I always have some kind of little, even if it's like a little weekend getaway, it doesn't have to be something super expensive either, like, or go somewhere that you like to go. It doesn't have to be an actual trip, to get away, but like something, you could plan a party too, but just depending on what it is, go to a sporting event, whatever it is you like to do, just plan something a little bit in the future, and then you have that to look forward to. And I find that that's always an uplifting thing. You know how people feel like after you go on your vacation, you come back, you're like, oh, my vacation's over. You had that, to look forward to for a while, and now it's over. Well, now you're gonna have to plan something else.
Exactly. Yeah, it keeps that positivity going and those good vibes flowing as well.
Mhm.
Wow, this has been so much fun. And I've just kind of scratched the surface. You talk about online dating tips. Oh, you've
Oh
got
my
so
gosh.
much content. It's just amazing. Man, we could spend a lot of time on that too.
Oh gosh, that's a topic in and of itself. Oh boy.
But you
Yeah, I
give
have
some.
stories.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear some of those. Oh my goodness. I know your viewers have just probably learned a lot from that too. That can be quite a tricky proposition, can it not?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, because it's just there's a lot of deception that goes on, and there's a lot of people out there masquerading as things that they're not, including, their marital status.
Mm,
They're out there making believe they're single and they're not, and all of that. So you kind of have to. It's difficult. And then there's people that, there are predatory people out there as well. So you really have to be careful. So I do, one of my videos is actual safety tips specifically for online dating, because it is different. When I first became single, and I was like, well, online dating sort of like a blind date, right? I mean, I've been on blind dates, so it's not that different, but it really is, if you think about it, because usually a blind date, you're being set up by people that you know and that care about you somehow,
right.
and so and with the online dating, it's just really a complete stranger. So you really have to kind of like weed people out, and and I do have some safety tips on there, and just really be careful until you kind of get to know them, because you never know. There's definitely things that happen out there, so you got to be
Right.
careful.
Right.
Everybody, not just men, but I mean, not just women, but men as well.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
mhm.
Wow. Gosh, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I would love, love, love to have you on the podcast again because
Oh, I would love to do that.
thank you. You are just a wealth of information and positivity. And like I said, you have overcome so much, and you are such an inspiration for women, not only women out there, but to me as a guy too. So I appreciate all that you're doing. I can just see your channel just blowing up, even being bigger and better than ever. And again, Mari, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and your busy life to just ingratiate us with your presence and your wisdom and advice. So thank you, Mari.
Oh my goodness, Phil. I'm so humbled. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure to be here. I have really enjoyed it. It's just been like just a great conversation, And
Yes.
thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
Thank you. Well, it was my pleasure and my honor. Believe me, because you have such a wonderful personality, and your advice is so solid, and so it's amazing. And women out there, and I know you talk to Latina women, but women of all races can learn from you and your experiences. It's just so universal. And like I said, guys can learn from you too. So that's how universal and how important it is that what you're telling people and sharing with people about your life and your experiences. So thank you, Mari. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
You're very welcome. And everyone, with that, that is the end of this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. Everyone, stay safe, be careful out there, take care of one another, and we will talk again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.